A reading from the Gospel according to St. Luke, the 12th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbiter over you?" And he said to him, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then he told him a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store up my grains and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life will be demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God.'" The gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. You may be seated. So I want you to do an exercise, and I'm going to do this too. I have one question, and I want you to, you can use, if you have the bullets in there, the last page is empty. It's blank. One question. What are you worth? You're not going to share it with anybody? It's for your own thing. What are you worth? I'm going to write it down. Write this down. What are you worth? And just put that aside. I've heard the phrase that people don't like to talk about money. I don't think that's true. I think we love to talk about money. We love to talk about money when it's abstract and ambiguous and just concepts that are so complex they really go over our head, but we just try to simplify them. So things like recessions and GDPs and whether the stock market's going up or down or whatever it's doing. We love to talk about other people's money, what the poor should do or what the obnoxiously wealthy should do or not do or whatever. You know, like sending rockets up into space. Everyone's got an opinion about this, right? We love to talk about money when it comes to complaining about it. Price of gas, anyone? Groceries, taxes, whatever, it doesn't matter. We love to talk about money. We just don't like to talk about our own money. That's too personal. We don't like to talk about our relationship with money, right? All four readings we can't avoid are about money in some way, shape, or form. And money oftentimes is a metaphor for greed and those type of things. Let me be really clear. Money in and of itself is neither good nor bad. It's just a thing that human beings created 7,000 years ago. About 5,000 BC is when money showed up on the world stage. Okay? So when I'm talking about money, I'm talking about it, hopefully, the way that Jesus is talking about it as far as the love of money. Right? Turning money into something from a thing to something more than just a thing. Right? Take like the gospel, right? So our gospel has this situation. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." Well, that sounds pretty fair, right? Let me give you a little background of this. In this society, so this would be a younger brother. The older brother, well, not everything, but gets all the land. And then the rest of the stuff gets divided. So if there were two brothers, 2/3 of it would go to the older brother and 1/3 to the younger brother, if you added up everything. The importance of that is because in that society, land is really important. It's what carries on a family, and it always went to the older brother. That was just the way it worked. And so this younger brother is coming to Jesus and says, teacher, which is rabbi. And rabbis weren't just like, I'm a pastor and I know stuff about theology and all this. Rabbis were seen as someone who could settle disputes and make judgments based on what the Torah said, the law. So this man is coming. He got what he was supposed to, and he didn't like it. And so he comes, teacher, someone who can settle this dispute, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me. I want more, is what he's saying. Force him to do that on my behalf. It's about control. And Jesus says, friend, which is an interesting response when he's been addressed as teacher. Who set me to be judge and arbiter over you? In other words, if I do that, there'll be other things that I'm going to have to make judgments about you. And he said to him, take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, because that's what's going on in this man's heart and mind. He wants more stuff. That's what it's about. He wants more stuff. He wasn't satisfied with what he got, which was, he knew, being born into that society, this is what you get. You're the second son. You're not going to get the land. Why are you doing this when you got what you were supposed to? And then Jesus goes on and tells this parable, which is really interesting. 3 sentences. The thing that caught my attention is 3 sentences that where is it here? The land of a rich man, right? So the rich man, 3 sentences in this entire parable. 11 times he uses a variation of I, me, or my in 3 sentences. Not once does he consider God. Not once does he talk about anybody else. It's a focus, right? Luther had this definition of sin, which is turning inward on oneself. It's a parable about turning inward on oneself. There's no care and concern for anyone else, only his own comfort and pleasure. Says it right in there. Soul, hey, you got plenty. Eat, drink, be merry, right? And because of this, it's actually causing a hardship on the rest of the community because he's hoarding. He's hoarding. He doesn't need that much. What's he going to do with it? He's going to sit it in a barn. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to rot. And as a result, the price of grain is going to go up for everybody else. No consideration for anybody else. This is what this parable is about. It's a contrast of 2 competing gospel messages, if you want to talk about it that way. The gospel message of money and of Jesus. The gospel of Jesus sets people free. So what is it that we need to be set free from when it comes to money? The gospel of money likes to tell us if we're a success or failure based on what we got. Jesus sets us free to use what we have to glorify God and serve our neighbors. The gospel of money tells us what our identity is. It's super attached. This is why we have trouble talking about our own finances. Jesus measures identity and worth based on being made in the image of God. Money likes to turn us inward on ourselves, just like the man in the parable. And then I lost my spot. Telling us that we don't have enough, right? A scarcity message, and we need more, and there's never enough, right? Jesus is a God of abundance, telling us that there's more than enough to go around. How many times have we heard that throughout the Gospels? Money tells us that we better take care of ourselves before we even consider taking care of anybody else. Jesus calls on us to follow his example of self-emptying love for others, and in doing so, we'll experience how powerful love actually is. The gospel of money tells us that we need money to survive. Jesus tells us that there is more to life than just surviving, that in him there is thriving life. The gospel of money tells us that it gets to make the decisions because it's so very important. Better consider the finances first and primarily before you do anything else. Jesus frees us from being a slave or enslaved to things that want to control us and lie to us. Money tells us that it's in charge and that we work for it. Jesus tells us that we belong to God and that we're loved. Money tells us that it is the center of the world, our culture, our lives, everything, the center of the universe. Jesus resides in us. We are temples of the Holy Spirit. Jesus is present in community and active in the world. The gospel of money is not new. I'll give you an example. In Rome, go back to the 354 BC, I think it was what it was. There was a temple that was built in the center of the city. The temple was made to the goddess Juno Moneta. Anybody know what that goddess is? The goddess of money. That's where they would then print the coinage for about 400 years. So right up through the time that Jesus is walking around in Israel, in Jerusalem, and the surrounding countryside, Rome is printing coins in the temple dedicated to the goddess of money in the center of the city. What do you know about the center of a city? It's the most important place. It's where there is all the most important commercial activity, right? Think about our towns. Banks are usually in the center of the city, right? Courthouses, those type of things, right? A market oftentimes, right? You can go to downtown Harrisburg, there's the market, those type of things, right? It's also where there's the center of culture, history, politics, geography. It's in the middle, and what's in the middle, it's on the hill in Rome. I don't remember the name of the hill. I want to say Palpatine, which is Star Wars, sorry. Palatine, yeah, right. Palatine Hill, center of the city. It overlooks everything in the city of Rome. Do you think it's important? Yes, very important. It overlooks and oversees everything that Rome is doing, and it guides it. The gospel of Jesus sets us free from something that has had a long hold on humanity. We hear it in all four of our readings. Ecclesiastes. Sometimes you read Ecclesiastes and you're like, oh man, how depressing. Vanity of vanities. Everything is vanity. What's the point? That's not what Ecclesiastes is about. Yes, there's a piece of that. But Ecclesiastes tells us that things like the message of money, that what it promises and what it offers is vanity. It's empty, or to put it in a nice little pun, it's worthless. The psalm tells us that all that we have we're going to be given to someone else anyway, and that our focus should be on God. The letter to the Colossians tells us to put to death all the things that are self-centered. All that, an entire list. It's all about me. And what do I want to do? And how do I want to respond and react to things? And instead put on a new self, which is about care and concern for others. And in doing so, we're not just loving others, but we're loving God. What could be more valuable than that? That's the argument. And in the gospel, Jesus is clear. It's not money or possessions or wealth or what we have or don't have that gives us worth and value. It's God. That's what we're called to have as our prime focus and attention. And when we love God, we'll live that out in a variety of ways, loving one another, serving our neighbors, praying for our enemies, seeing the image of God in them, welcoming the stranger, using the resources we have to help those around us because we worship a God of abundance who provides. So I want you to go back to your exercise. Take a look at what you wrote. Here's what I know. The answer to the question of what are you worth involves no numbers, no amount of money, no possessions. You're worth an infinite amount of unending grace, mercy, forgiveness, and love. There is no number that could possibly contain that. The question of what are you worth isn't about money, because money isn't the center of our lives. You are not the temple of Juno Moneta. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit. It's God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit who reside within us, the center of our lives. Jesus sets us free from the false gospel message that we hear about money. Jesus sets us free to abundantly love in response to Christ's abundant love. Jesus sets us free to abundantly care about others in response to Christ's care for us. Jesus sets us free to abundantly see the image of God in others as Christ continually sees the image of God in us. Jesus sets us free from turning inward on ourselves to turn outward toward Christ, toward creation and those around us. So what are you worth? I'll just share. This was my visual. I don't know if you can see that. You might need to zoom on that. But it's an infinity sign and a heart. Infinite, here, wait a minute. There we go. Infinite love. That's what you're worth. That's what you're worth. Thanks be to God.